Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show.
It all seems to happen at once. Growth and decay, something that's been fading away, is moving through regeneration. Beautiful DNA carries memories across the glowing season away, and moving through regeneration. Won't you sing? Won't you sing? Costume is easy to wear, but must be thrown away upon the dying daylight hour, moving through regeneration. Won't you say?
What's up, everybody? Another week, another edition of the show. This week, I have Peter SALETT, amazing singer, songwriter, composer, among many other things that we will touch on today. But extremely excited to have him on the show. He just released essentially a double album. So there's a lot of new stuff for you to go out and listen to if you haven't heard it yet. But first and foremost, welcome to the show, Peter.
Hey, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
So with a little bit that I touched on, singer, songwriter, composer, many other things, activist, all these things that you do. How do you find time? First and foremost, the question to handle all of it.
Well, it's been challenging. I think that I don't take days off as much as I should. Especially during kind of the heightened political season with this political work that's kind of overtaken a lot of my life. I try to, I think I had to be really intentional about putting out these 2 records this year. I started them way back in 2012 and probably finished them in maybe 2017, 2018, something like that. And I'd put them on the shelf. I'd really wanted to do right by them. I was kind of emotionally connected to having, trying to figure out some sort of grand release plan for them. And it's been a journey for me to try and release myself from that and say, it's okay, whatever happens is fine. And I'm just going to actually put them out and let them find their own way. And so sometimes you ask where do I find the time? Sometimes it's a bit of compartmentalizing, saying, okay, I really have to be intentional about doing this right now because life moves so quickly. And if you don't already have that momentum in a particular career, sometimes it can be hard to kind of build momentum without really digging into it and once it's up and running and people are coming to you for things and asking you to do things, and then there's a rhythm to it. But if you're not at that place, then I think it's really about just kind of figuring out how to devote certain sections of time and say, okay, this afternoon I'm going to really knuckle down and work on music, or not even work on music, because that's something that comes naturally that I love to do, but working on the promoting of music, or working on getting a show or promoting a show or putting something up on social media or something like that, that tends to really fall by the wayside, but unfortunately is, I don't know if it's critical, but it's really important in today's modern music landscape.
It definitely is. Now, when you had finished these and they'd been sitting on the shelf, was the intention to release both of them at the same time as one completed work?
They, I had thought about it. Yes, definitely. And if someone buys the physical CD, they come as a double CD.
Yeah.
Um, uh, you know, they are separate works, but they're definitely connected, and I think uniquely so. Um, Honestly, part of it was that if I put them both up on Spotify as a double album, then it only allowed me to put one cover for the entire, piece. And it was like, well, these are long form pieces. They're really meant to be listened to, all 33 minutes or whatever it is. But I had to kind of make some compromises basically, to put them up on Spotify and say, okay, listen, if I'm going to be releasing singles and people want to listen to one individual song, they don't need to go through the whole piece and try to find where the song is. Let's just let them um, find the individual singles. So I kind of broke the piece up a little bit so it plays continuously on Spotify, but it is individual singles. And similarly, I separated the two pieces so that they're distinct. But yeah, they belong together, and but they don't have to go together.
Okay. Now, I want to like hit the personal level with you where it comes to when your life begins as a child and you're starting to kind of notice different sounds coming around your life. And there's usually a moment, sometimes people grow up in a musical household where parents are always having music on, but there's usually a moment where something you hear as a child kind of clicks with you and connects with you and leads you to the next direction. Everybody knows it. That's listens to the show. I was 6 years old. I heard the Beach Boys, and now I'm 48, and my life has been surrounded by music ever since.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't, it's funny, my parents were not that into music, not particularly into music. They did have some records. Um, but they had Tapestry. And so Carole King's,
Yep.
iconic record. So that was something that we definitely listened to. I don't know that I heard Tapestry and thought I want to be a musician. Um, I think that really it was more a matter of, um, I recently found um, this very old piece of sheet music from when I was 10 or 11 years old, and I must have been taking piano lessons. I took piano lessons just for a few years around that time.
As
And
most of us in the world do.
exactly,
Yeah.
this was not an unusual situation. Parents tell you to practice, you don't practice, and thus endeth the lessons.
No, it's the living room furniture that was the stand-up Kimball that almost every house in the 80s had.
Exactly. It might have held some candlesticks, so, um, uh, but I found this old piece of sheet music of that I had written, and I had written some song when I was like 9 years old, and it was just my own kind of notation, probably approximating what it really should have looked like. And so even though I didn't continue with that instrument at that time, without realizing it, this is me looking back and seeing it. There was always something when I got connected to an instrument that made me want to create. And so I did a lot of theater growing up, and I would sing in musicals and things like that. And but then when I was 15, I got my first guitar. I had a couple of buddies who I'd met in high school, and they loved playing guitar, and I thought they were cool, and I was like, oh, I'll get it. I want to get a guitar. So, but around Thanksgiving, I asked my parents for a guitar for Christmas, and they got me a guitar, and it's you
What did
know
you and your buddies name your band? Your first band?
we didn't this was we didn't actually have a band. We were probably known as the Too Many Acoustic Guitar Players band.
You had to have worked on a name.
Yeah.
Everybody has a kid who tries to come up with a name.
It's funny. My One of my buddies, whose name's Steve Arms, and his brothers were in a band that was kind of like in the Philly scene, and like knew the Outriders and things like that. So we thought that they were super cool. Um, y- you know, but whereas most people just kind of like wanted to learn whatever, either the folk song or the the Billy Bragg song or whatever those songs were, I wanted to learn them, but I wasn't really focused on kind of, let me make sure I get every note right. Let me really learn to play this. It was just it was kind of like, oh, let me write a song. Let me write. And so I had definitely been kind of surrounded by, creativity, being a, child actor. But there was nothing necessarily to indicate that I would be a writer until I had the guitar in my hands, and then it's just like, oh, I'm just gonna write songs, even if I only know three chords. Let me use them to write a song. And so, um, I, thinking about this question, what is it that makes somebody an artist? And I don't use that in some kind of grandiose term. I just mean, what is it that makes somebody, whereas one person might want to imitate somebody else, and one person might not want to pick up a guitar. What is it that makes another person pick up the guitar and say, I just want to write something right now. I feel that this is how I feel most comfortable. Um, and whatever that was, I just seemed to have that desire. That's where I really felt most comfortable on an instrument, was was creating my songs, and then eventually kind of singing them for people, um, and and figuring out what that experience was all about.
Do you remember that first experience, like singing in front of strangers as opposed to like, family members or whatever, but the first time you really got in front of strangers and performed?
I don't know if I remember the very first time that I did that. Um, I uh, I don't know the very first time. That's a good question. I did have a seminal experience, but this is later. This is maybe 5 years after I had started performing. So I was in high school. Then in college, I performed a little bit, playing some music, some of my own music. Um, but it wasn't a total focal point. I was still really into acting, not the musical theater part as much as the acting stage, just plays and things like that. Um, but after college, I moved out to Alaska, and I got a job waiting tables at this restaurant in Juneau, Alaska. And I was shocked.
There's restaurants closer than Juneau, Alaska.
It's an interesting point. I hadn't looked at a map. No, but part of that was that I grew up on the East Coast. I was like, I want to get as far away as possible. Let me go someplace where nobody cares about what college I went to, or nobody cares about, all these different status things that people have. And Alaska is an incredible place for that, because it's just they just kind of greet you as you are. They're not looking to
There's
to
nothing
one.
there's nothing that you can give them that they need. And,
Yeah,
you don't have to be something else that you're not, essentially.
exactly. And you're existing in the context of this like incredibly beautiful natural landscape. And it's like you just can't help but feel kind of deliciously small against it. It
Yeah.
really is. It's 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 really remarkable, and I recommend it to everybody. But I so I there's this thing called the Alaska Folk Festival, which takes place in Juneau, and as opposed to most folk festivals, which are like, hey, the folk festival books the artists and there's like, 7 performers a day and that kind of thing. The Alaska Folk Festival was different because they booked anybody in the town could sign up and you get a 15-minute slot. And then the entire town comes and it takes place all week. And so I had been playing a little bit in the bars, just kind of, open mics and things like that. And I was also actually in a theater company up there, but I mostly was working at this restaurant, and I had this song that came to me called "And Spanish is Spoken in Kitchens," and it was my shock in 1992. My shock that even up north in Alaska, Spanish is spoken in kitchens, meaning that this is a whole group of people that we don't really see, but they exist everywhere, not just in Texas, not
Yeah.
just in New York, And so I sang the song at the Alaska Folk Festival, and the entire town was there. It was like, or not the entire town. There was like 1,500 people there. It was in the huge auditorium. And man, oh man, the response that I got for singing that song, which was like a political song, had a political undertone to it. A lot of the response was really positive, but then I got some really negative response too. People coming up to you in the library 5 days later, yeah, right. Spanish certainly is spoken in kitchens, so, and whatever.
Yeah.
People like really trying to mess with you. And that was really eye opening for me, because all of a sudden it was like, wow, you mean I can actually move people. I can move people with a political song and really speak to them. And like, people really thought about it.
Well, yeah, you're invoking thought. Like if someone's really paying attention, and I think
Yeah.
that's the purpose of music.
Yeah. Yeah. People really thought about it. They were like, yeah, we're going to, that's right. We have this whole community here. Maybe we're not integrating them. And like, what can we do? And it was, it was a great experience. And not something that's been like necessarily replicated in my life.
How long did you live in Juneau for then?
I lived in Juneau on and off for about a year and a half.
Okay.
I did 2 winters in Juneau. And then kind of, again, growing up on the East Coast, and retaining my ambition. I had a lot of friends in New York, and it just was the place that I kind of needed to come to and gravitate towards. And I really wanted to kind of see if I could make it here. And yeah, so I moved permanently back to New York, probably in 1993, something like that.
Now, coming back and trying to maybe, as a sense, recapture what you had done with that song out in Alaska, was that kind of a focus and attention for more creation back here on the East Coast?
I think it was. I think that one thing that was true was that in Alaska, when I played for the community there, it was really a cross section of like the entire community. When I got back to New York and I was 24, 25 years old, I was playing for young people. So it was young, creative people. There was a tremendous amount of energy in the scene at that time. But I played in Spanish is Spoken in Kitchens for them too, and they loved it, So some of that energy definitely kind of continued on in New York, and that relationship to the audience, when you feel like they're really kind of paying attention to what you're saying. I looking back, there's a lot of songs that just kind of got lost to time, just because in the kind of pre-digital era, I have songs on random cassette tapes and DATs and things like that. But I had a fun song. Eventually I kind of graduated from just being solo acoustic guitar to playing acoustic guitar with a great drummer and a bass player. And I would play my acoustic guitar through the amp, and I would I had these big long dreadlocks, and we would just kind of really rock out. Um, and we'd play. I used to play this place called CBGB's Gallery, which
Mm-hmm.
was right next door to CBGB's.
Yep, I know it well.
Um, and we'd clear all the tables and chairs out, and play midnight shows and New Year's shows and things like that. And that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
Now, I mean, you talked about losing songs, and
Oh, what I was going to say, sorry, you reminded me, is that I lost this song. It was called Connie Chung Went to Portland. And it's very time specific. And it actually it presages some of the elements that we have right now in our culture, which is Tanya Harding had just like kneecapped Nancy Kerrigan. And Connie Chung went out to Connie Chung, who was a major news anchor, like the kind we don't
major, not just Maury Povich's wife, a major news anchor,
not just Maury Povich's wife, in the era of major news anchors, with the Dan Rathers and the Peter Jennings and the Walter Cronkite was a little bit before that, but like it really meant something back then in a way that we don't have today.
Yeah, I mean, she was an Asian American female head anchor, which is, I mean, nowadays they're looking for someone like that to check a box that supposedly they have to.
No, she was a total trailblazer.
Oh yeah, she was absolutely amazing to have that back then. The thing too now, like now how everyone's trying to fit someone somewhere, to think that like there was not, she just did it. Like there was nothing, no one could stop her.
Yeah. There's an amazing article that came out in the New York Times, I don't know, about a year ago, maybe, a whole generation of Asian American women are named Connie. It's just, she was a total icon. But I was kind of making fun of her in this song because I was like, why are we doing this? Why is she like, it was like, and it was kind of contrasting. It was a bit like Gil Scott-Heron, the rats are on my stoop, or on my steps or whatever, or the homeless are, not getting the help they need or whatever. And Connie Chung went to Portland, probably that song is probably best unheard, but yeah,
I kind of want to hear it now.
I know. But I definitely, that type of energy continued for a while, and has come and gone in terms of like the political nature of the songwriting. And at a certain point, it's been what's been great, and I feel so lucky about being a songwriter and writing so many different types of songs about so many different types of things, and they're great puzzles to solve.
Yeah. Now, speaking of your own songs, there's a lot of times no one could know who you are. No one knows you're an artist. And the simple question can come up and they would say, hey, play me something of yours. Mm-hmm. You get that one chance to make a first impression. So of your catalog, what one song would you play for someone that never heard your music?
Oh, man.
It's my favorite question to ask on the show.
I guess it might depend on who that person is that's asking.
Total stranger. And and it's human nature to judge based upon appearance. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it depends, I think like most people, I probably lean towards more recent work, just because I might feel closer to it or but I think, the song that I might play for people is a very old song, called Heart of Mine.
If everything glittering will turn into the So though we cannot know if everything glittering will turn into the gold, I'm through with waiting and hesitating. I want you taking this heart.
And Heart of Mine was, I had written it on my own, but I'd given it to Edward Norton, who is a good friend of mine, and he had happened to be directing a movie called Keeping the Faith at that time.
Is that Ben Stiller?
That's Ben Stiller and Jenna Elfman, yeah. And so I wasn't pitching him these songs, but he loved this song, Heart of Mine, which was the title track of the record. And he made it kind of the main theme of his movie. And so all of a sudden it was like, I got to go out to Hollywood and meet with Hollywood Records and have them say, listen, the song, they didn't know me. I was just a performer in New York. I didn't have national recognition. And they said, oh, well, it's good. It sounds good. But, we want to get T-Bone Burnett in on it. I was like, okay, well, that sounds great. And then I met T-Bone, who's a classic character, not someone that I know well, but I did have these interactions with him. And it was right around the Wallflowers time. And he's like, I want to get my own band in on this. And of course, in one of the many, many mistakes I've made in my music career, I was like, no, I want to use my band. I want to use the recordings that I have. And my thinking was that songs and movies are so tenuous.
Mm-hmm.
A little thing here or there, and all of a sudden the song doesn't work. And what I didn't want to do is re-record the song and all of a sudden have it not quite feel right. So, so I got to work with T-Bone, which was amazing. He's an incredible musician and just has amazing instincts. And that song, Heart of Mine, is probably the song of mine that the most people have heard. And I had really nice responses for years and years. People would use it in their weddings and write to me and from all over the world, just, based on that song, hearing that song in the movie. When the movie, came out on video, then I would get all these, people would write me all the time. When it would play on HBO, I would know because people would write me. So that song, Heart of Mine, that's probably one I direct people to.
Now, I mean, going from Spanish being spoken kitchens and Chung, Portland, and then to having one of your creations lead you down a path. Did you ever, because sometimes there are intentions of working towards having a moment like that,
Mm-hmm.
and yours kind of happened, very, and I don't mean this, but like simply, like it was like just sent the song to a friend and then all of a sudden all this stuff happens.
Yeah.
Was there any intention prior to that of, working towards having a moment like that? And then after that moment happened, was it, okay, then now what's the next moment that I have to work towards?
I think that in particular kind of, because I think a lot of things early on in my career came very easily, where it just felt like there was I had a lot of energy. It felt like there was kind of a constant upswing. I think that when Norton told me he was going to use that song, I was at Sundance with the kind of cult classic movie Wet Hot American Summer that I had written the end title for, and acted in a little bit, and was just hanging out with all my friends at Sundance. And that too, it was just kind of all happening. I was intentional about making the music, but I wasn't necessarily intentional about the real career, the long-term career aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Um, actually, you know what? Do I have the dates wrong? I think I have the dates wrong because I actually, when Heart of Mine came out, I must have been at Sundance for some other movie at that time. When Heart of Mine came out, um, I had a big booking agent call me up and say, "Hey, do you want to go on the road opening for David Gray?" And David was on his White Ladder tour. And I said, "Look, I can do it, but I can only do a few dates because I have to go shoot this movie, Wet Hot American Summer." Um, and so, I think after Heart of Mine came out, and I realized that even though it was an incredible opportunity for me and so many good things happened from it, I wasn't able to truly maximize it in the way that I could have. I had seen other friends really be able to maximize opportunities. And and so then it was like, okay, I really need to buckle down. I need to get a manager. You know, I need to really try to work the system to get some sort of label deal, which never really happened. A lot of the times in my career when I've really focused and tried to achieve something in a particular way, um, it hasn't happened in that way. The things that have happened that have been good have been usually because I've just made something that appealed to somebody that they wanted to integrate into whatever work that they were doing. And so, yeah,
You,
that's similarly, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which
it,
was a song I wrote, co-wrote the Dracula puppet musical at the end of that movie. Um, and that was just, my friend was the producer, and she called me up and she's like, "Hey, do you want to help out in this movie?" "Yes, sure. Tell me where to go." "Go to Hawaii." "Okay, I can do that." It's like, um, and so it just happened. I wasn't out there thinking, I wasn't like pushing my stuff as the greatest musical writer to be able to write this musical. It was just like, she was like, "I like you. You're cool. I think you do good stuff. Like, let's, you want to do this." So, um, I think that push pull has been interesting to try and figure out.
do you think sometimes, it is, a lot to do with life when you're working so hard? Like when you're working because you love it, right? And you're following your passion in creation, things just happen as opposed to, well, I want to make a go of this and now I need to take all the right avenues and work really hard to get there. And then you're languishing. And it's maybe because sometimes passion and hope and goals kind of, counteract each other.
I think that I think that people instinctively they appreciate drive, but they also, and and a work ethic. But I think when that feeling goes more into a feeling of like desperation, like, "I need to get this. You have to give me this. I need this. I've been working so hard for this." I think that as a presentation doesn't go over as well because people want to feel like they're working with confident people
Hmm.
that have been there and have their shit together. Um, but but I also feel like, truthfully, that looking back, I think there were things that I could have done because some stuff came to me easily early. I think there were things that I didn't do to become a better musician, to become undeniable, and so it's like, I think there's some people that, if you can become if you can really devote yourself to learning the craft that you're of whatever enterprise you're in, learning from the people that came before you without choosing to be imitative, but really learning, digging into the structure and not just the surface of what they did to create what they did. Um, and then to become undeniably great, then it gives you a much better chance of being able to really lift people in performance, on record, so that um, that they want to take you into their lives and make you a part of their life. And and so I do have some regrets towards that. You know, were there things that I could have done to have trained better, to have learned more quickly, more easily, um, to have also within the Hollywood system, when I was in the Hollywood system, to really learn how to be a cog in the wheel of a giant Hollywood movie rather than a singer-songwriter who is used to saying what parts go where and that kind of thing.
Well,
Yeah.
if you took a step back and, like, let's say something traumatic happened, and you know, everything you've worked so hard to get to at this point kind of all goes away, but you get to look back at your art. Do you think you've achieved a lot of the things that you just talked about, making the differences, getting into someone's life? Do you think you can look back on it fondly? You said the word regrets, which I hate that word.
Yes,
You
fair
know,
enough.
but it's, do you get to look back and be like, you know, I probably wouldn't change a thing?
I definitely wouldn't look back and say I wouldn't change a thing. um, because there are certain crazy things that happen where you're like, like my big night where the record labels were coming to see me and I broke two guitar strings and didn't have a backup and spent 15 minutes of my 45-minute set stringing my guitar. Just like they're just stupid things that happen sometimes. So you're like, if I go back and change it, I would. Um, I think that yes, I do think that I've created um, work that has moved people, that people have enjoyed, that people have made a part of their lives, that's brought joy to people. So, in answer to your question, I do feel like that's true. And are they at the numbers that maybe I had envisioned going into this when when I felt like I was really on an upswing? Not necessarily, but making peace with that is some is kind of has been the lesson for me. And I think that in terms of these two records that I just put out, this is probably the most precious music to me that I've made. I feel very close to it in a way emotionally. And I really had delayed putting it out because I really wanted to kind of do justice to it. And so it was really a journey for me to try to make peace with the fact that I had made the work. I wanted to just put it out so that people could discover it. And that it's okay if I don't get XYZ, if X number of people don't come to my show or whatever. That I have to, that working on finding peace with the result, the external result, um, has been, quite frankly, a challenge for me. But that's just part of it. And I do feel proud of the work. So yeah,
Well, you should feel proud.
thank
You
you.
should.
Thank you.
Well, I know your time is precious, so we're going to do a couple rapid fire before we go into our final segment
Okay.
of the show.
Yeah.
Artist that never lets you down, someone you find yourself constantly wanting to listen to and look for inspiration from.
It's funny. This just popped into my head, but I haven't listened to him in a while. But he never lets me down, and that's John Prine.
Nice. All right, world's going to end in 5 minutes. Meteors hurling into the earth, and you have to listen to one song and one song only. What song are you listening to?
What song am I listening to? I am listening to. What am I listening to? Yes, I'm not being very rapid fire. I want to listen to. Um, uh, I'm thinking too hard about this. I'm thinking too hard about this. I want to listen to.
What's the first thing that popped in your head?
Really, it was. I don't know why. It's totally random. I don't know. It was like Led Zeppelin. I want to listen to California. I don't know why. It makes no sense.
It's usually the right answer.
Yeah, apparently so. Maybe I'll listen to it now and see if there's a meteor.
Yeah. All right. Something you listen to that people would be really surprised based on the music that you create and your John Prine answer. Something you listen to, people would be really surprised. You get tons of enjoyment out of.
I mean, again, I don't listen to them a lot right now, but I love Rage Against the Machine.
All right. Understandable. All right. Your home is burning down to the ground. All living things have gotten out safely, and you get to
Okay.
run in and you get to grab one piece of music, something, music memorabilia, instrument, computer, like something. What's the one thing you're walking out with?
Um, I'm probably walking out with my Martin guitar that is from the early '60s and um, was given to a friend of mine by Sean Lennon, and I tend to daydream that it once belonged to John Lennon, although it most likely did not.
His money bought it. So.
I no, I know, no, but yes, yeah, but I love that instrument.
Nice. Nice. Now, if you, I usually preface if you have a phone or whatever, however you listen to music.
Uh-huh.
Our final segment of the week is it's called our weekly threes. It's 3 things that you're listening to that you would like people to check out. You give 3, then I give my 3.
Oh, cool. If I have my phone, I can look through. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can totally do it.
Well, one band I really love is Lawrence. I don't know if you've heard of Lawrence, but they're incredible. And let me see who else I've got here that I've. And there's a band called Jamoro that I really like.
How do you spell that?
Jomoro.
Okay.
And that's Mauro Rofosco and Joey Waronker. They're both percussionists, and it's like kind of Brazilian, but it's kind of not, and it's really, really great.
Nice.
And let's see. I'm just looking for something here that I think that Anthony Wilson is one of my favorite artists. He's got a bunch of great records, but there's one called Frogtown. He's just come out with a new record that I have downloaded, but I haven't actually listened to it yet. I'm very excited to.
All right.
Anthony Wilson.
Nice. Good 3. All right. My 3 for this week.
Mm-hmm.
My first one is a band called Duomo. Duomo. The name of the album is Reprise. They kind of write pop orchestral compositions. Really unique, nice electronic tones in the background too, and some ambient stuff. Very good. Number 2 is a band called San Dimas. They're kind of they got this moniker of melodic metal, which they are absolutely not.
But they're not melodic, or they're not metal?
No, they're not metal. They're melodic, but they're more along the lines of Paris, I would say.
Okay.
And then last is a band called Roseburg. They have an album called Righteous Punk. They're kind of an Oregon folky pop indie rock type of thing.
Cool.
Just a bunch of old missionary kids making some cool music. So
great. I've typed them all in here.
But those are my 3. Right now, before I say my goodbyes, I'd love to give you this opportunity, Peter, to tell people how to, find your music, how to listen to it, how to follow you, how to keep up with everything that you're doing in your busy life.
Thank you so much. Well, I guess the only real platform that I'm active on is Instagram these days. So they can
Same as us.
They can look on Instagram. Peter SALETT, SALETT. I do not have a giant following, so don't be dissuaded. And if you type my name into Spotify, you'll find, or any of these. These 2 records are on all streaming platforms. They're on Bandcamp, and again, the name of the 2 new records. There's one called "Sweet for the Summer Rain," and its companion piece is "Dance of the Yellow Leaf." And just to give you a little background on these pieces, they've got gorgeous string arrangements, incredible strings, harp, French horn, ocean sounds, wind sounds, lots of different kinds of percussion, timpani, vibraphone, and they're really kind of these song cycles. They're meditative works, and you can listen to them one song at a time if you like to, They're up there on Spotify like that or any streaming service. But the best way to do it is to try and, carve out a little bit of time and just listen to it in a way that we used to listen to records, which was not with a million other things going on.
That's a
Um,
fact.
Shane, how would you describe the records?
So I would describe one as very symphonic. There's there's two songs that I had pulled out that I've played for people. Regeneration. There's also an older song of yours that I started showing people, Ghost Above My Bed.
Yeah.
And there's one is very, I want to say, I don't know, it sounded introspective. And the other one is very, when you get little interludes of the gravel under your feet walking to a train and an interlude of backyard cicadas in between songs, it kind of leads you into, it gives you a breath. And I think it was very, it wasn't a necessity, but it was a wanted welcome for me. Like all of a sudden I was like, oh, I had like this tiny little interlude instead of just some soft violin music. You know what I mean? It was like something new, and it was like, oh, what? Okay, here's 40 seconds of this. What am I getting to next?
Right.
And it was really cool. And I recommend people to take your time with it and actually sit down, like how you said, without other things going on, like how we used to, and how I still listen to records. I have my own chair.
Yes, the chair.
The chair. I have my records, and then I put them on, and I make sure I have time for them.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, exactly. I think opening the suite for the summer rain, you'll hear these wind sounds over the ocean and kind of bell in the distance. And I've called it kind of cinematic adjacent because if you let your mind go, it'll really take you someplace, and it takes you a different place kind of every time. But in a way, you build your own movie. You make your own narrative with it. The lyrics are not literal, but they are connected, and they kind of make sense over the entire piece as a collage. So,
and you have like the little waves crashing sounds, and which is my favorite sound in the world.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I didn't collect all of the sounds, but I collected a lot of them. And actually, that opening bit for Sweet for the Summer Rain is the only one that I actually did on a sound stage. My buddy Andy, who is who's been the sound mixer for, The Wire and so many amazing shows, David Simon shows. I snuck in one day with him, and we created the opening piece. So, it's just the reason I mention it is because I think it clues you in right away to, we're not just jumping to the single here. This is not about like, hey, what's your best 15 seconds? Like, this is for a different sense of time.
Well, I think the naming of the songs too, is definitely intentional, but it also leads you to what you can kind of expect, which is really crazy when you think about how people sometimes come up with song titles. Usually has nothing to do with anything that is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then, like you said, Footsteps to the Train, right? That's a track. That's me, recording myself. That's me listening to the F train here in New York City and thinking, you know what? The F train has its own song. When it hits the brakes, it's singing a melody, and it's part of the melody that we live with when we're here in New York City, or and I think it'll kind of, for lack of a better word, ring those bells for people in other places too, so.
Nice. Well, big, huge thank you, not only for being here today, but for creating the art that brought us together. To me, that's, the most important thing when it comes down to it is you spend all this time and you put all this hard work and you bare your soul for others out there in the world to judge. And it takes a lot to be able to be okay with that. But in that, it brings two strangers like you and I together to talk and spend close to an hour together and have a fun time and start to learn about each other. And it opens up dialect and conversations that you normally wouldn't have. So thank you so much for creating that art.
Well, thank you so much for being, such a fan of music and being, so instrumental and in finding art that you want to show to people and being that conduit.
Thank you for that. But everybody out there in the world, you know what time it is now for you. It's time to go out, listen to Peter SALETT, and have a great fucking time.
There I was, just 17, awakened by a sight. Hovering was a light form above me in time. I cannot recall her face, but floating was a soul, hovering as a light form, still there when my eyes closed, far away from the ghost above my bed. In the night, it wasn't just a dream, imagination scheming in a young life. River of my mind, portrait on the wall, seemed to smile just for me. He lay awake until the dawn. The mist had risen from the bay.
Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions to myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.